Horror Coast to Coast is a movie review podcast featuring strong language, horror film spoilers, and discussions of violence, gore, and disturbing subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Horror Coast to Coast.
Welcome to Horror Coast to Coast, where we review horror movies from opposite sides of the continental U.S. Setting my Ouija board on fire in Massachusetts, I'm Brian.
And here in California, in my very well-lit house, I'm Michelle.
And this week we're reviewing Paranormal Activity from 2009, written and directed by Oren Peli.
After moving into a suburban home, a couple becomes increasingly disturbed by a nightly demonic presence. Straight to the point.
Describes about 1 million movies.
Yeah, that's true. That's the IMDb summary, so it's pretty big. But I mean, yeah, that's what it's about.
Yeah. So we open up the movie with just some text that spoils the end of the movie, essentially.
Oh, I don't think I got that. I just got a cut to Mika with the camera.
Oh, the first frames of the movie say, like, thank you to the families of Micah Sloan, Katie, whatever her name is,
Yeah, okay.
and the San Diego Police Department. So it's pretty much implying, like, yeah, they're dead, thanks to their families.
Oh, I guess maybe I saw that and ignored it. Yeah, and let me just say this guy's name is pronounced Mika, but I watched it with subtitles on and it's spelled Micah, so I will probably say Micah several times.
Oh, yeah. What I found interesting was there's no credits at the beginning or end of this movie.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess that's the commitment to the bit. I bet Blair
that's
Witch
true.
Project did that.
That's true. It's commitment to the bit. But, I read that it was just, I read an interview, a couple interviews actually, that it was just the director, his friend, and the actors. So really small crew.
I saw that the budget was like $20,000 for production and then $200,000 for post-production. And I'm like, where did that go? And now I'm like, and who did they pay?
No, I thought it was only like 15,000 total, and then he spent like a year in post. But I guess money goes into that. I don't know. Because the interview I read said that he used all of his own money, and I can't imagine. I mean, he was a software programmer, I think, and I can't imagine he would have that kind of cash just laying around to put down on this movie. But who knows? Who knows? But pretty cool that this was like the first thing he had ever done and had no film experience, and also essentially developed it while he was working a full-time job. That's like my dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to come up with some cool creative project while also working a full-time job.
Yeah. So we start, it's September 18th, 2006 in San Diego, and Mika has just bought a new camera, and he immediately starts pointing it in his girlfriend's face.
Right. And there's not a lot of exposition here at the beginning. It sort of unfolds as the movie happens, but you do get right away that I think they explain something's been going on with her, and this is their mission to catch it on film.
Yeah, and he's like already right off the bat gaslighting her. He's like, I want to record everything that's not happening.
Yeah.
And he's just like that through the entire movie, just doubling down on things like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're filming everything. And that night, we hear footsteps. But I don't think they pick up on that. They don't talk about that at all. But we hear footsteps in the recording of them sleeping.
Yeah. There's a lot of the sounds that happen in this movie were like imperceptible, which I think is really what made it so creepy. But yeah, I guess we hear footsteps. For me, it just sounded like thumping, so I couldn't quite tell the difference.
Yeah, so Katie calls a psychic over to like talk about the stuff, and Micah's mocking the concept and playing like spooky music.
Yeah.
He's like, this will make them feel at home.
And it was interesting too because I completely forgot about this part of the movie. I forgot that there was a third person involved and that the psychic was actually pretty helpful. I was pretty surprised because I thought it was going to be like what Micah was saying, like they're going to come up with a whole bunch of. I'm thinking of like Lin Shaye and the what is that movie? Insidious.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was instantly reminded of the Christmas tapes, the Christmas spirit short. Of what
Oh.
was the guy's name? Is like Paranormal Perry or something?
Yes, yes. So, yeah, and I was like kind of expecting it to be something like that almost. Yeah, what I was saying earlier is Lynn Shay from Insidious, where she goes in and she tells the family
Oh
about the
yeah.
further and all that stuff. It's just so like hokey and cheesy, and that's what I was expecting. But this guy was really grounded, and he is very
Yeah.
quick to admit, he was very quick to admit like the extent of his expertise, which always I think gives credibility when someone says, "Here's what I can do and here's what I can't do."
Yeah. Yeah. So he says, you might be dealing with a demon, and that's not my area of expertise.
Yeah. And he gives them a name of someone.
Yeah, he gives them the name of like a demonologist. And then he leaves. But before he leaves, he says, don't fuck with it and definitely don't like buy a Ouija board. I'm looking at you, Micah.
Yeah, he's like, don't make any efforts to communicate with it because you're basically inviting it in.
Yeah. That night the door moves slightly, and this time they do like notice that and they reviewed on the tape and they're like all creeped out.
Yeah.
They're like, but the windows weren't open. I'm like, I feel like there could still be a draft in the house.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a thing, but it probably is a demon. So joke's on me. I wouldn't think it was anything, but it's probably a demon.
Yeah. I guess it was a demon. Okay. So then during the day, nothing really happens, right?
Yeah, pretty much. It's pretty much. Mika's pointing the camera at Katie, and Katie's like, "Please put away the fucking camera. I'm sick of the camera," which
Yeah.
is half of this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's like, I don't know, I don't quite understand his motivation if he's seems to be skeptical at the beginning, but he insists that the camera stay on, and so I guess that's the vehicle, the device that was used to keep the
Yeah,
camera
and he
running.
frames it like this is gold we're getting, which is like
Yeah, even though
it would make sense like a lot of the time in these type of movies the main character is trying to profit off of the ghost, but he doesn't even have like a YouTube channel set up or anything. So it's like this is gold we're getting. And he hasn't even gotten anything when he says that.
yeah, and also he doesn't believe any of the things that he has
Yeah.
recorded.
Yeah, so that night it's like we're on like night 5 and Katie wakes up and she just like stands up and points herself towards Mika and stands there perfectly still for like 3 hours.
Yeah. And this is probably where the movie for me starts to get
Mm,
really creepy because she's not just standing there, she's kind of like lightly swaying back
mm.
and forth as the time goes by, and the time at the bottom of the camera is sped
Yeah.
up so you can see how long it takes her, or how long she spends standing there, and
Mm.
it's very disturbing. And then the next day they review the footage.
Yeah. And then they also, when they review the footage, they hear like demon noises in it.
Yeah.
And they're all the time when there's like clear demony things in this, they're so clueless about it. Like they're just like, does that sound like something to you? And it'll be like a demon being like, fuck your mother. It's like, do you hear something?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the part where I was like, okay, I don't understand Mika because after this happens, she's like, okay, fuck this. We are calling that demonologist. And he is adamantly against it. which doesn't make any sense because he seems to want to investigate the activity, but then he rejects expert involvement. But then he's also really cavalier about the experiences that she's having,
Yeah.
even though he's catching it on camera. So like there's a lot of inconsistency with, I guess, his goals. And I have a theory about that, which I'll get into when we're done, but that's the thing that stood out the most, was how Mika's behavior and his, decision making didn't really seem consistent throughout the movie.
Yeah, he seemed like he needed an extra layer to him. Like he needed, if he was like trying to exploit Katie for like views or profit, or like if he was a true believer, he just wanted to see how crazy things were gonna get. So it's like, no, I don't want to exercise it yet. But they don't really give you any motivation. He's always just doing the opposite of whatever would be helpful.
Yeah.
So he suggests the Ouija board after just being explicitly told not to do the Ouija board. And she's like, fuck,
Yeah.
no,
And
do
she's
not
like,
buy a Ouija board. Promise me you won't buy a Ouija board. And he's like, I promise.
yeah, she's like, absolutely fucking not. What is wrong with you? And then some other stuff happens in between him saying that and him eventually buying a Ouija board.
Yeah, he's going around filming and like asking the thing questions, and he asks it the Monty
That's
Python and the
right.
Holy Grail questions, like, what is your quest? What is your favorite
That's
color?
that's right. He starts like
Yeah, he's
jeering
like
it, and he's
killing the
doing,
ghost.
it's this like weird, like reckless, thrill-seeking kind of behavior. Like at this point, you can tell he's not taking it seriously, which is bananas to me, because what other explanation is there for the things that he's been seeing except to say that Katie's having some stress response and sleepwalking? Which, by the way, when that happened, he essentially starts accusing her. And he's like, "Don't you remember doing this? Were you sleepwalking? What's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
Like he's like berating her for it, and you're just like, dude, sleepwalkers don't remember and can't really give you any answers. I don't know what you're doing here, but um, yeah, it was like I said, he was all over the place.
Yeah. So that night she does the staring off into nothing for hours again, but this time she goes downstairs and we get Mika, who immediately grabs the camera before investigating anything.
Yeah, have to.
And he goes downstairs and he finds her out on like they have a swing chair on their deck. And she's like in her underwear in the freezing cold swinging. And he's like, are you okay? Do you want to come back in? She's like, no, I'm fine. It's good here.
Just leave me
Yeah.
here. And this is the point in the movie where I start screaming, "Turn on the fucking lights! Turn on the fucking lights!" They do this every single night with just the light of the camera. Turn on the goddamn
Yeah.
lights. It was insane. He gets up and he reaches for the camera and doesn't turn on the lights. Like, what is wrong with you?
Can't have the horror parts being brightly lit kitchens and stuff. What do you mean?
It's true, but it's so counterintuitive to a person investigating something that they can't, they don't know what it is. It's a mystery noise. The very first thing you do is turn the lights on. And he doesn't, they never do it in the entire movie.
Mika
So
is
the
committed to
movie
getting
is
the scariest footage
shrouded.
he can. So he's like, it would be very
Yeah,
helpful for me to
yeah,
be able to see where I'm going, but the footage would be way creepier if I leave the lights off.
yeah. And that's a general like critique I think I have of found footage in as a rule. It tends to be not poorly lit, and the camera's always shaky, but then also the the depth of the shots are usually very narrow and small. You're not getting like a full line of sight of everything that's
Mm-hmm.
happening. And I think that happens so much here that it's really hard to tell what's going on sometimes, and you kind of have to rely on like what they're saying in the scene.
Yeah.
But anyhow, he finds her and then he runs back upstairs to get a blanket.
Yeah.
and then turns around and
Oh
she's right
yeah,
there.
spooky.
Yeah.
Right, and then the next day, Mika buys the best fucking looking Ouija board Katie has ever seen in her life and puts it in her fucking
Oh
living
my
room.
God. Yep. And she is so mad, beside herself, can't even, but it has to wait until they get back from
Yeah,
filming. I don't know what they were doing, like a party, a dinner, whatever, but she's like, we need to leave. We got to go. We're going to be late. And they leave
yeah,
and leave the Ouija board in the middle of the living
yeah.
room
With the camera pointed at it, of course.
with the camera pointed at it. Yeah. Very strategic.
And then, of course, because we have a shot of a Ouija board alone in a room, obviously stuff's gonna start moving.
Yeah.
So it does. And then it bursts into flames.
Yeah. Yeah. I was a little concerned about that. I was like, is the house going to burn
Yeah.
down? Again, this is part of her narrative.
Yeah, I thought they would at least burn something. I thought they'd come home and like
Yeah.
realize that things had been burned. But they do notice the
Yeah.
board has been burned and it has a very clear pentagram burned into it. And they're like, what is this thing?
What is
It
this
looks like it's trying to
symbol?
tell us something.
So I was trying really hard. I'm still not sure. I was trying really hard to see if there were some other scratches in the board and if that pentagram wasn't like initially a part of like the
Oh,
veneer
okay,
underneath.
yeah.
Like that was my thought, and that there's some scratches in the board that I can't quite see because at some point he goes over with a marker and he circles letters and squares some stuff, and it doesn't really overlap with that pentagram. So I'm thinking that maybe there's some scratch marks or something or scorch marks we can't see.
Well, I couldn't see anything other than the pentagram, so it wasn't communicated
Yeah.
very well if it was meant to be something else.
Yeah, I tried really hard.
So Katie wants to call the demonologist, and Mika's like, nah, we shouldn't do that. I'll solve it. I'm gonna use like flour
I
and
got
I'm
this.
gonna figure it out. I'm gonna solve it. So he puts like flour on the floor.
Yeah. Which is a cute idea.
Yeah.
It's not really gonna make it go away, but it's evident. He's like, I think their goals are different. He's trying to collect evidence of what's happening, and she wants a solution to make it stop. And their goals are not aligned. Except it doesn't really matter if he does this, if you're gonna call the demonologist. I don't know. It just seemed like I didn't really see why she was resisting him just investigating, and I didn't really see why he was resisting her with the demonologist. I guess they were just set in their ideas and didn't want to see the other person's perspective.
Is this just the paranormal equivalent to like when the husband wants to fix the sink himself, even though he's not capable of it? And the wife's just like, can you please call the plumber? And he's just making shit worse.
Maybe, maybe that's the idea.
Yeah, so I don't know what Micah thinks he's gonna solve because that's the word he uses. Like, okay, maybe you'll get
Yeah,
some more evidence that something is happening, but you're not even gonna solve what it is by proving
yeah.
it moved.
On top of which, on top of which, he refutes the evidence that he has gotten.
Yeah.
Because if you remember back to the scene where she's standing in front of the bed, that happens after he starts antagonizing the
Yeah.
demon. He spends the day calling this thing out, and then it comes and essentially kind of takes her over for a couple hours. And then he's annoyed with her for that happening when he's the one who fucking provoked it.
Yeah.
And then I remember him saying, maybe this has been going on for a long time. Maybe you've been like sleepwalking and you just don't know it. Like he is full on fucking gaslighting her. Although it's not out of the realm of possibility that she has been doing this for a long time, but he frames it like this is a you
Yeah, but
problem.
if she has been doing this
And
for a
like
long time, it's because the demon has been following her since she was 8. So that still doesn't change
which
anything.
she's explained
Yeah.
to him. I don't know. He's weird. I don't know. The fact that he's so stubborn is frustrating.
It would work better if he was just like super into it, like he thought it was so cool, and that's why he does all this
Yeah.
stuff. But they want to have him be both a skeptic and the guy who does all the investigating, and they conflict with each other.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so then after the baby powder's put down, they get the footsteps
Yep,
in the
of
powder.
course. Yes. Then we get the footsteps, and they follow it to like a closet where a panel that I don't even did they even know about this panel? It seemed like they didn't.
No.
It's just like a
No, I don't
ceiling
know.
panel that leads up to the attic, and they go up there and they find a photo of Katie from when she was like 8 or whatever, and it's like burned, and she's like, that shouldn't even exist
Yeah.
anymore. Like I haven't seen that photo in
Yeah,
15
because
years.
yeah, and everything that was in that fire was like lost and
Yeah.
burned.
And this is just like burned around the edges a little bit. So she's freaked out.
Yeah. And you think at this point they'd be like, okay, let's hotel it up.
Yeah.
But they don't.
But the psychic did already tell them that it wouldn't matter, that it's just gonna
It wouldn't
follow
make a
her.
difference. Yeah, that's true.
So he comes back the next day and he's like, comes in and he's like, I gotta get out of here, but real quick, like this demon is pissed off I'm here. Uh, I gotta go.
Yeah. He's like, I don't know what's going on anymore, but the presence is overwhelming and he's
Yeah.
pissed.
So he's like, I'll try to tell the demonologist to come, but I'd love to help you, but I gotta go. Bye.
Yeah. And she does call the demonologist, but it turns out he's out of the country. So
Yeah.
they don't even have a chance to getting help from that
Yep.
guy.
And then Mika Googles the curse and he found like
Yes.
something from the board and he Googled that and he found it like GeoCities website about a girl from the 60s who had all the exact same weird experiences as Katie from like her house burned down when she was 8 and all of that. And I love the website,
Yeah.
the GeoCitiesness of it. The fact that you would get this from a website that looks like that and be like, this is definitely true and not like someone's spooky fiction they wrote.
Yeah. My only criticism here is I wanted them to read from that text. Not the whole thing, but like a sentence or tell us what it says. Like they kind of talked about it, implying that they skimmed it or read it or whatever, but I wanted to hear what was actually happening on this site,
Yeah,
you
I'm a
know?
firm believer that whenever they do these scenes, they should give you a clear look at the URL and then they should make the page real so you can
Yes.
go read it, the whole thing yourself.
Yes. Some things have done. There have
Longlegs
been
did a great
movies that have
website like that. Yeah, it's
really.
all like chronicling all the Longlegs murders and everything. It's really cool. I
Oh
think
my
it's called
gosh. I have to look
thebirthdayMurders.com or
at that.
something. Yeah, I love when they do that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say I know there's been um like movies that have done things like that, where the websites exist,
Yeah.
but they definitely should have made this website. It would be so
Yeah.
easy.
I mean they probably already did make it for the movie, just like the HTML. I mean, it's super simple, so they could probably just throw it up and
Yeah.
publish it.
So we don't learn anything else about this random lady except that she died.
Yeah.
And we don't learn how she died. We're just shown blurry close-ups of the picture on the screen,
Yeah.
right? Because that's what it
Yeah,
looked like to me.
she's like, "Oh, she's pretty." And he's like, "Yeah, now." And then it looks like maybe her neck breaks or something and like she looks towards the camera and her face is all messed up. But it's super
Yeah.
like dark and grainy and hard to see.
Yeah, it's blurry, and you can only tell that something awful has happened based on Katie's reaction to that picture.
Yeah, pretty much. It looks like her face is messed up, but like it's really hard to tell.
Yeah. So that's not really for me, that's not a super probative, like, storyline. It's just kind of thrown in just to suggest that this has happened before, but it doesn't go
Yeah,
anywhere.
well, it basically just leads to Mika's conclusion that like
Mm.
it followed her and then she died and followed someone and then it followed you. So thinks it's the same
Yeah.
demon. But yeah, they don't like he's earlier he said, I'll solve this. And now he has all these clues and he doesn't like look for a way to like solve it with this new information. He's just like, well, that's probably what that is. I solved it by saying that she probably had
Yeah.
the same demon because it did the same
Uh,
thing. Problem solved.
if you got a problem, yo.
Yeah, he vanilla iced it.
but didn't really do anything. Okay. So clearly after this happens, things just continue to escalate.
Yeah, and she's like trying to get a hold of the exorcist, then Mika's talking her out of it, saying, no, it'll make it worse. Because she
Yeah.
tried to get rid of it and it made it worse. So just, well, oh, he says it's gone away before, it'll go away again.
It'll go away
But
again. Yeah. Just ignore the
yeah,
problem. It would have been fine to ignore it before you started making fun of it and telling it to show its face or
yeah.
whatever.
Oh, yeah, he did too. So
Yeah, he was
he
like,
is
show
like
yourself.
Jersey Shore, like, what? Come on, bring it.
Yeah. No, he does everything to make this worse and then takes zero responsibility for it.
Yeah.
While Katie's in the corner like, "Please stop. No, please don't do that. Please stop doing
Yeah.
that." And he just keeps going.
Yeah. And Katie's like put her foot down and been like, no more camera, okay? We're done with the camera like 5 times now.
Yeah.
So she does that again.
Yeah, and he just doesn't listen. I've seen this before and I didn't remember anything except the one scene where she gets dragged out of bed.
Oh yeah.
And it happens and she gets dragged out of bed and it is so
Oh yeah,
freaking
that's like the
scary.
trailer scene.
Yeah.
And then he like examines her and finds a massive bruise with like teeth marks. Massive teeth marks. So apparently this thing bites and has a massive mouth.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish that hadn't been part of the trailer because that would have been terrifying if you had seen that for the first time while watching the movie. That would have been a scream.
Yeah.
So scary. I mean, I was on edge watching it, knowing it was coming. I probably anticipated it like 10 minutes before it happened. Every time the night session would start, I'd be like, "Is this the one? Is this so? Is this when she's get dragged out of bed?" But yeah,
And the demon's motivations are kind of weird because half the time it wants to control her, and then this time it just wants to drag her out of bed and take a bite out of her.
yeah, I don't quite understand the exact progression of what was happening to her. I think the idea is just that it's getting closer and closer and worse and worse. Because there's one point where she's laying in bed and she wakes up because she says she feels it
Oh
breathing on
yeah.
her. And so I think the idea is just that it's getting closer and closer to her. Probably also trying to respond to some of Mika's challenging, right?
It doesn't do anything to him.
No, but when he's saying like, show yourself, do this, do that, like, let us know what's going on, it responds by stomping around the house and slamming things and dragging her out of bed. And I don't know. I mean, he's
Well,
poking
Mika
it.
told it to square up, so like, what's your deal, demon? You scared of Mika?
Yeah. I don't know. It's a long con, I think. Slow playing it. Because it squares up in the end.
I guess, yeah. So at this point, they're deciding to go to a hotel, even though we've been over it like several times now that shouldn't make a difference.
Doesn't
The
matter.
psychic said it wouldn't matter, but we're gonna go apparently. And then we get a scene where Mika like finds Katie passed out holding a crucifix and like I think she has blood on her. And there's
Yeah.
something about this scene which is
Unclear.
it starts recording like right when he discovers her. I'm convinced that he discovered her, went back and got the camera, and turned it on to get a scene of him discovering her. I'm 100% convinced that happened.
Yeah.
The way it's
Yeah.
shot, like he clearly turned the camera on to get the shot of discovering her.
No, he was just innocently walking around the house. filming the couch. Well, you know what he does before that? He films himself putting that picture into the
Oh
fire,
yeah.
and then he films it in the fire as it's burning,
Yeah, he's like, fuck this shit,
and
I'm
then turns the
done.
corner. Yeah. God. Yeah, so then he takes her back upstairs, even though she says that she doesn't want to go back upstairs. She says it multiple times that she doesn't want to go upstairs. He takes her back upstairs and puts her in the bed.
Yeah.
So what happens next is on him.
Well, he says we're gonna go, and she's like, no, I want to stay.
Yeah, that's when he puts her
Oh
upstairs in the
yeah.
bed.
So she
When she's downstairs, she had been telling him, I don't want to go back upstairs. Let's please just leave. And then when he finds her passed out, he brings her upstairs. And then she's in the bed and she's like, I don't want to leave. Let's stay.
Yeah.
With that creepy smile on her face.
Yeah. Yeah, she's like talking like a child. She's like, I want to stay.
Yeah. She's talking like a child. And then at the very end, there's a little voice effect where she's got like a second vocal underneath what she's saying. Did you catch that?
No.
Yeah, there's one thing she says. I think he may have stepped away. Right as he steps away, she says something, and you can hear another voice underneath her talking. And then she smiles, and it's like a creepy smile. And then you're like, oh shit, it's over.
Yeah. So she does her staring at Mika for hours trick again for the final
Yep.
time. And this time she does it in the usual position, but then she also does it like right next to him.
Yeah.
And then she goes downstairs and starts screaming like bloody murder.
Screaming.
So Mika goes to investigate, and then I think he also starts screaming.
Yeah. Then there's silence,
Yeah,
and nothing happens for like 30 seconds.
yeah, yeah, there's a long pause. And then we just get something chucked at the camera, which we immediately figure out is Mika.
Is Mika.
At first, I was like,
Yeah,
what did they throw at the
that's what
camera?
I
It's like,
thought too.
oh,
It's
it's
him.
Mika.
Yeah, that demon said, "Catch me outside," and freaking went to town. Like he definitely squared up the way he was asked to.
Yep.
Um, and then Katie's standing there all creepy, and she's got some blood on her shirt.
Yeah. And she like kneels down, and it looks like she's like sniffing him or something. I don't know
Yeah,
what she's doing.
I couldn't quite tell.
But then she turns her head up, and we get like a spooky Snapchat filter face. And I hate it.
Yeah.
It's so
Then
bad.
she pulls her face up to the camera. So I in some of my research into this, heard there were two endings.
Yeah, I just watched the
And
alternate.
well, I had never seen this ending. I had seen the
Ah.
alternate ending where she goes downstairs and she's shot by the police.
Oh, I haven't
Um, so I don't know
I
why
don't
I
think
saw
I've
that
seen that
ending.
one. That one wasn't on my DVD.
No, I'm
I s-
telling you, I don't know how I saw that ending, but that's the ending I saw where she goes downstairs and she's shot by the police, which is why it is confusing to me in the second movie, which is essentially picking up where this left off. She's totally fine. But I was willing to just
Yeah, well,
assume.
this ending says that Mika's body was found like days later, and Katie was never seen again.
Right. And that's the continuity between this and the next movie. But in the ending that I saw, the police show up and she goes downstairs and they shoot her. And then the second movie came out and it picks up where this left off, but she's fine. And I was willing to just believe that maybe she survived the bullets because she's possessed and then maybe probably killed all of those cops.
Mm.
But I did not see this ending, and I don't remember how she kills Mika in the ending that I saw. But yeah, one of these was the theatrical endings, and one was not.
So I have the DVD. It has two endings. The one where she
Yeah.
throws Mika at the camera is the theatrical ending. And the
Okay.
alternate ending, she walks into the room. He
Yeah, she
walks
goes
downstairs,
downstairs.
and she comes upstairs. and she just walks over to the camera and like looks into it and then slits her throat.
Oh, see, I saw an ending where she goes downstairs and she's all bloodied and the police like shoot her.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
Maybe
That's
I'm
not on
thinking
the
of something.
DVD. Yeah, maybe.
Maybe I'll think of another one of these. There's so many of them, so. But anyway, thoughts. I have a bunch.
All right. Well, one thing that I didn't like at all is the fact that like every shot in this movie fades out. And I don't understand why they did it. It feels like we're going to commercial break.
Yeah. Well, if you watched it on, I don't know if I can trash talk platform, but if you watched on the platform I watched it on, it did go to commercial break.
Were they timed correctly? Were they timed
No,
every time it
no, they
faded
weren't.
out? Because
They
they
weren't
should be.
timed.
It
They weren't
feels
timed
like a
correctly.
made to TV movie because like
Yeah.
every shot, and if it's like all just footage, it should be hard cuts. Like every VHS mini film is like tons of hard cuts because that's how
Yeah.
a camcorder works. So why would you
Yeah.
not just do that? I didn't understand that. And speaking of VHS, I think I like every VHS segment that I've seen better than this movie.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. The VHS movies are really well done. But I actually like this movie after watching it now than I did the first time. And I think I also like it more knowing that this is the director's first film and all the circumstances behind it. Um, for example, it's unscripted.
Yeah.
And
I
what
mean, that does not surprise me at all because Mika is just fucking around the whole movie and being a toy.
right.
It's like half
So,
the movie is him just like
yeah.
vamping.
So my understanding is that before each big event or each big like development, they were given a structure of like what was supposed to happen. And then they were separately told their motivations towards each other. And like, for example, when she's trying to convince him to go downstairs and he's basically saying, no, we have to stay upstairs. In my mind, they were told, you make sure you try to do everything to get him downstairs. And you make sure you try to do everything to keep her upstairs. Like I could see them getting that kind of direction. Um, but at the same time, I thought that this, when you think about the fact that it's unscripted, I found one thing that I thought was really good about that and one thing that I thought was not so good. The thing that I thought was good is that I thought that the speech patterns were natural and that the interactions between them were awkward. And I think that that's how people speak. Talking over each other is how we talk. It's not you talk and then I talk in like a recorded format like this or in a deposition, one of the instructions that I give to the people on the line is make sure that you wait until the other person is done speaking before you start talking because the court reporter needs to record everything, you know, accurately and they can't do it if you talk over each other. And people still talk over each other. It's just how we speak. So I really liked that aspect of it because it felt natural. It felt like we're in this awkward moment with this couple and they're bickering and um it just I don't know. So that was the thing I thought that was good about it. The thing that I thought kind of took away from it is that if they're supposed to be creating conflict, if they're given the instruction to create conflict or start an argument, it it creates this conundrum for the viewer because we're trying to understand the character's motivations and it doesn't make any sense because it doesn't match the actor's motivations. There's this like there's this open-endedness that it makes it really good horror, I think, when you just don't know what the hell's going on, all these creepy things are happening. Um and it gives you this really good overarching story because the characters are doing everything to make sure the story moves along. But it sort of asks us as the viewer to suspend our expectations when we're looking for cues as to why the characters are doing what they're doing. And that's what makes it a little frustrating because if the actor gets an instruction, they maybe have to do something that undermines the foundation they built for the character, because ultimately it moves the story along. And that's what makes it hard for us to follow, because we can't keep track of these dual motivations of developing a character, but then also doing something that is not in the interest of what's happening, just to move the story along because you've been given that instruction. So I thought that that was a tiny bit disorienting at times, because I wanted to dig into, why is he being such a dick? Why is nothing he does make sense? Well, it's because his instructions don't seem to match the character that was supposed to be developing, right? It doesn't match the scene and the things that were happening in the movie. So that's the thing I thought was probably least served by having an unscripted movie where the characters are just given a general sense of what's supposed to happen, right?
Yeah. So I think the biggest part that suffers from that is that it just doesn't really have a story. It doesn't have a
Yeah.
direction. Like, there's no meat on the bone. And
Yeah.
that's my biggest issue with the movie, is that there's no meat on the bone and there's no sauce. And it needs one or the other.
Well, I think the main idea was this demonic possession growing more intense over the course of the movie and culminating with her becoming possessed, which is a very basic demon possession story.
Yeah,
Like, it starts out,
that's just the demon possession genre.
yeah,
That's the
exactly.
whole
But
genre. So there's nothing to set it apart from that other than just the found footage, because found footage is still a novelty at this point. So
I
that's
was
like,
gonna
it's
say,
really riding on that, which, like, I don't know, Blair Witch did it better a decade earlier. So it just
yeah, but the thing is, I don't know. I don't think it was, well, first of all, one of the other things I read is that this movie tested extremely well with audiences. Um, and they did lots and lots of testing. I don't know why, but part of the trailers included shots of audiences' reactions, right? If you remember that.
I
Um,
remember that happening to every horror movie for like a decade afterwards.
yeah. Yes, yes, for sure. But that was one of the appeals, I guess, at the time, is that you saw people, moviegoers in theaters, reacting to this movie, and you were like, wow, they were so scared. Maybe I'll be scared too. Um, but the thing is, I do think that there's parts of this that work well, and I can see why I mean, it's creepy to me, for sure. I mean, it's because I think in these, like, high adrenaline moments like this, where you are on alert or on edge because you think that you hear a noise, it's imperceptible to anyone else except you in that moment, especially when you do the, like, did you hear that? Did you hear that? Most of the time it's, no, I didn't hear anything. And that happens several times until you're like, oh shit, I heard it too. And it kind of invites you in as the viewer. Because at first you're like, I don't know what's going on. But then you start experiencing it too. And I think that kind of pulling you into that domestic aspect of, I'm in their house and there's something here with us, I think really does create this atmosphere. Um, I agree with you that doesn't have a super strong story. Um, and ultimately that gets resolved with the other movies, right? But at the same time, I do see why the horror element was really effective in this way.
Yeah, I mean, it had some effective horror moments, but like, all the daytime segments kind of just felt like filler. I only really liked the parts where the psychologist showed up.
Yeah, agree. I actually do think the daytime sections could have been cut. I mean, the section where she has her friend come over,
Oh yeah, we didn't even mention
not
that.
really,
I forgot
not
about
really,
that.
not important. Except the friend is like, "Don't buy a Ouija board. That's stupid."
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah, I
yeah,
think
that
every
wasn't
character
important.
but Mika in this movie says don't buy a Ouija board, that's stupid.
Yeah, man. But yeah, I liked this better than I did the first time I saw it. I think I've already said that. And I think that part of the reason for that is because I know how the rest of it unfolds. And looking back, I like this as the origin story, even though the third one's the origin, really. But I like this as the seminal idea. And then what it turns into is, I think it becomes interesting, right?
Well,
No?
I've only seen this one.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought you owned them all. You do, but you
I
have two.
do. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so what definitely watch the second one because I think it goes with this one pretty well. But yeah, the story unfolds in a way that I wasn't expecting, and I think I liked it. I thought it was a good story. But I haven't seen those movies in a while, so I don't know. I might change my mind about that. About that. But I don't know. I liked it.
So if there was no script, does that mean that Katie kind of just decided to throw Mika at the camera?
I don't know. I mean, I think those are the kinds of things that were decided, right? Like
No,
in this scene, this is what's
I
going to
think
happen.
Katie decided to do that in the moment, and
I'm
they
so fed
kept
up
it.
with him.
Yeah.
I'm so fed up with him. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's if he's told to push her buttons and start a fight, I don't want to I'm going to throw someone like that across the room too.
Yeah, and like Blair Witch Project, the characters are just the actors. So
Yes.
Mika just wanted to have his full name associated with like the biggest douchebag of all time who does nothing but the most obnoxious thing he could do at all times.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if at the time this persona would have been considered a douchebag. I think now we look back and we think like, God, you're just gaslighting and you're just not listening. You're an asshole. But at the time, this was the standard nice guy. Like
I
he's
don't know about
concerned,
that.
concerned for her. He hugs her. Like there was, I don't think him specifically got any hate for not being like a good dude.
Those moments, you know what they remind me of? Do you know the original VHS? There's this short where there's a guy who's talking to his girlfriend and she's like, "Ah, I got this weird bump." And like it's like, "Yeah, don't worry about it. Just it turns out he's like working for aliens and
Oh,
implants them in all the different girlfriends that he pretends
I
to
do
have."
remember that. And he goes from like house to house and
I feel like that character was inspired by Mika because he like acts like that.
don't worry about it. Yeah, but I mean that's what I'm saying. Like that was the it's fine. It'll go away. Just don't think about it. That was
Yeah,
that era. That was like what people did. So I don't know if I know now we're like, wow, that's not smart and being in denial and not addressing issues leads to bad things. Um
I don't know.
we're
I
more
feel like
enlightened, but
bringing a Ouija board into the house when you literally promised not
okay.
to do it, was that ever the cool thing to do
No, that
in
was fucking dumb.
2009?
And
And
that
that's
was
his
fucking
whole
dumb.
personality is just to do the most obnoxious thing he could do.
Yeah. I mean, at first he's like, we're going to record it. I'm going to help you. But I don't know. I think in the end, his stated intentions do not match his actions. And he's a frustrating character for sure. And like I said, I see why that happened and where that came from, but it doesn't erase the fact that he was quite frustrating. But Katie was frustrating too. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, yeah, she
a
sucked
lot
too.
of there was a lot of like if this is so scary to you, if you are so like I don't know, frightened and you're shaking in your boots about what's happening, I don't feel like you guys really are doing the most to help yourselves. Like I feel like there's something else that could I can't tell you what it is. I can't solve this problem, but I do feel like calling one guy maybe not the real solution. You know, like you've seen movies where they call in people to do what Mike is doing, but with way more equipment, right? And
Mhm.
and that would have appealed to him, I'm sure. Like, why don't we get some real ghost hunters, demon hunters in here? And they'll have a camera, which you love so much, they'll have actual recording equipment. They'll be able to like pull layered sounds apart and like really listen to stuff, and he'll say, "Oh, I could do all that." But I think that would have been like a real course of action if she really wanted this to happen. She didn't seem all that motivated to like really fix the issue. She just was yelling at him and being annoyed.
Yeah. So there's a lot of horror movies where it's two unlikable people in a bad relationship.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they always do this. Like, if you have like a good artistic purpose why you want to do that, cool. But when it's just like a movie that's supposed to be scary, why make the characters unlikable and in a bad relationship and make me have to sit through their awkward, annoying arguments for an hour and a half?
This is the Christmas tapes.
It is.
That
It's
that short with the couple in Tahoe. Yeah, no, you're right. I get frustrated with unlikable characters. And the worst part is when people kind of gaslight you into thinking that that's the thing that makes it interesting, that the conflict is what pulls you in. And a lot of times the conflict obscures the more interesting elements, or the conflict undermines cooler things that could be happening, right? That's usually
yeah.
what bothers me.
Yeah, I feel like if you're gonna do that, you need like a character study aspect of like why you're doing this relationship.
Or why this particular conflict is deserving of being the focus of the story. Because that's really what bothers me too, is that not only are we conflict driven in terms of entertainment, it's generic conflict. Like, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what kind of conflict it is. And if you're going to have something where the conflict is a large chunk of the story, there should be a reason why it's interesting and why it's there. So like what you're saying, an artistic purpose. And a lot of times there is no artistic purpose because we've just been fed this lie that conflict in and of itself is valuable to entertaining. And I disagree with that. I actually think conflict, for me, it, I get disinterested. I get or uninterested rather. I get uninterested in things when I feel like, oh, this is conflict heavy. The other mechanism that I think filmmakers, story writers rely on a lot that I really hate is poor communication. So when they have
Oh my
characters
God,
where
yeah.
the main storyline is driven by the fact that these two people have not communicated with each other in a very, very basic way, I get real annoyed because I think you've set up this whole thing based on the fact that these two people just haven't said something simple to each other, and you're not even commenting on that. You've thrown away that examination of like how these two people could have missed something so basic, and you focused on the problems that's created, and that's your story. That rubs me the wrong way because I think, you know what, this is a good chance to examine how communication and miscommunication really, really drives our lives. No one ever does it. They just take advantage of it. They use it as a hook, and then the stories after that. It's so frustrating. I don't like stories where the basic problem is derived from lack of communication, of poor communication, unless it's a comedy. Because there's a lot of comedy that does that, and it does become a good comedy at times when there's like a confluence of misunderstandings, and that can be funny. But
Yeah. Well, sometimes it's funny, but like every 90s sitcom episode ever made was just someone didn't say something and now we have this big awkward lie. And I hated that whole genre because it's like
yeah,
every episode it's like, oh, here's a cringy, awkward like shenanigans to make up
yeah,
for this lie we told or for this thing we didn't say.
yeah, and that's doing a double service, right? There's two jobs that's doing, because you have the lie that creates this complicated situation that's supposed to entertain you, maybe give you, maybe, add some comedic element, but then there's the underlying tension of what you think is going to happen when that lie is revealed, right? Because eventually this is going to come to light, and then the other characters have to respond. So it's like there's the double function of the lie itself being entertaining, and then the later reveal of the lie being this like build-in tension that resolves somehow. And maybe it's like a want, no one really cares, but also it could be, oh my god, the characters are so mad at each other, and then relationships are destroyed, and blah blah blah. I mean, I don't know. Some of the simple mechanics that I think entertainment has just relied on in the past and in the present can just be so tiring. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's been lots of people who have just kind of figured out these formulas and figured out ways to capitalize on them. But sometimes when you can see it happening over and over again, it just gets, like I said, it gets tiring. But yeah, not a fan of the unlikable characters in a bad relationship as a trope, I guess. And it does
Yeah.
happen quite frequently in horror movies because they want the characters to bicker. Maybe because they don't want you to care so much if bad things happen to them, right? That is one of the things that horror does, I think, pretty well, is that they generally do not set up a likable character and have something bad happen to them. There are really good horror movies that do that and do it well. But I think for general mass appeal, you get a protagonist that's likable. You're rooting for that person to get through the horror elements, and then they do, right? It's very simple stuff like that, but
Yeah, but if I
we
don't
do it
like anyone, I have no one to root for.
right. But at the same time, you kind of have this sense that nothing is gonna come of any of this because these people are unlikable. I mean, that's kind of what happens here, right?
What do you mean?
Like Micah gets thrown across the room and Katie presumably disappears, is maybe dead.
Yeah.
Like if she were more likable, we would be rooting for them to find a solution to her problem. And I have to tell you, I didn't give a shit. Like
I
I
mean,
didn't
yeah,
care if
that's what I'm saying the problem is.
yeah, but I'm I think I'm positing that that's intentional.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake.
You think it's a mistake? So if she had been likable and we wanted her to be rid of her demon and the story still ended the way it did, you would have felt differently about it?
Yeah, because I would have felt something
Okay.
instead of
You would have
nothing.
been sad and that would have been a good outcome?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd much rather be sad at the fate of a great character than completely apathetic to the fate of an annoying character.
Okay. Well, I don't think that she would have been a great character no matter how it was written. I think she just would have been likable. Like a nice person who did all the right
I mean,
things.
you could write her as a great
Yeah,
character.
I guess so. But she wasn't written at all. There was no script.
Yeah. Well, she was
Yeah.
directed, so you could direct her as a well, I mean, and that's the other thing is they needed a story, I think. They had like the crumbs of the story on the GeoCities website, and that's like all we got in this movie. I guess it's all in the other
Did you look it
movies,
up?
but
The website?
no.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if maybe there was some old website that somebody put together.
I mean, I could probably recreate it. You get some pretty good looks at the page in the
Oh
movie.
my God. Well, the last thing I will say is that when speaking of getting good looks at stuff in this movie, I am tired of movies being too dark. And this movie was entirely too dark. And I know that it's a function of needing to do special effects in obscurity and not have wires be seen. When they reach a hand under the bed, it's supposed to be an invisible force, not have that be obvious. I get that there's a reason for it, but it's not a fun viewing experience when I'm straining to see what's going on the screen. And I really, really wish that movies would fix that because I think it's a continued practice that movies have been too dark. There's been a lot of movies that I've watched, and I'm like, this movie is just too dark.
Yeah, the that didn't seem like an issue for me on this movie because there was nothing to see.
Yeah, no,
Like,
agreed.
everything's just implied.
But there were shadows at one point. Did you see the shadows?
Mm-hmm.
So there were shadows, like when the entity walked past the door, there was a shadow. And something was mentioned that it had been standing there, and I realized there was probably a shadow earlier that I just didn't see. And then I just sort of weighed, well, is it worth it going back and trying to squint and see if you can find it? Just keep going. And yes, like I said, I know this movie is supposed to be dark and it's fine, but as a whole, I think it gets really frustrating to just be trying to make out what's actually happening on the screen or trying to make out a detail that can give you a clue about what's going on. Like, I want all the information, not just the information you're trying to spoon feed me through the dialogue, right? But anyway, that's basically it. Like I said, I think it's a valiant first time doing a film, having no film experience project. And as far as that goes, I'm pretty impressed with it.
Okay. So what do you rate it?
I give it a 3.
I'm gonna give it a 2.5.
Yeah, I felt that coming. Yeah, it probably doesn't help that I'm kind of probably gonna sleep with the lights on because Henry's not here. Or I'll grant the girls' wish and actually have a sleepover in their room with them. I'm just saying, after watching this, I don't want to sleep in my room by myself. Like, that doesn't, I don't know.
Just put some flour down. That'll
Oh,
solve
yeah.
it.
That'll solve it. Or break out my camcorder and start filming. That'll solve it. Anyway, okay. Well, good revisiting this movie. I hope the play is just as creepy. Or I hope the play at least has changed somewhat that you find some more sympathy for the characters.
So it is going to be Katie and
I don't
Mika
know.
in the play. It's like okay, you
I
don't
don't
know
know
anything
anything about
about
the
it?
play. Anyway, okay, what are we gonna watch next week?
Next week, for the week of April Fool's Day, we'll be watching my favorite horror comedy, Shaun of the Dead from 2004, directed by Edgar Wright. And now you can finally get all my references.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we'll be watching Shaun of the Dead. Or will we? Uh,
Nice.
okay. Awesome.
Until next time.
Until next time. This podcast is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 4.0 International License. For additional information and other media content, visit theferalthread.com. Thanks for listening. Until next week.